The next thing, I was above my body, looking down at it. I was looking down at the scene. I could see there was an expanse. I could see in 360 degrees, yet it was like there was a spotlight below. And I was observing the scene. I saw my body lying on the right-hand side with my head to the left. I could feel the emotions of the people on the ground from above. Again, this is all from above. So I'm watching this, and there was some disorientation
Mhm.
and getting my bearings. And there was a man, and that jumped out of the car, and he directed a woman to go. I saw the whole thing play out, directed someone to go stop the traffic. The woman who hit me said she had called 911.
I'd like to welcome to the show Felice DiMartino. How you doing, Felice?
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, my dear. I'm excited to talk to you about your spiritual experiences, your near-death experiences. There's a lot of stuff going on in your life, and you've lived an interesting one, to say the least. So, first question, of course, is what was your life like before you had your near-death experience?
So, my life before my near death experience, I mean, that's a broad question. Right
Mhm.
before my near death experience, I had gone through several years of what I call resiliency boot camp. I, uh, I'm a mom, I was a single parent, and I had two teenage daughters at the time, super loving, super supportive family. I had been on this spiritual unfolding journey for many, many years. And up until the accident, I was, a lot of things happened. I'll focus there. About a year and a half prior, my then partner had an affair. My house had a fire. Uh, there was a theft in the house before the fire, and all my jewelry got stolen. I had surgery. Once the whole top floor had to be gutted. Then the bottom floor had a flood. um, I took a leave of absence from work. All of this stuff happened, like major. Any one of those things would be enough. So that's why I call it resiliency boot camp, because it all happened at one time. And just as I got back on my feet, I it was about a year and a half, 2 years later, and um, I got hit by a truck. Literally,
Yeah.
as if I didn't feel like I had gotten hit by a truck with the fire, with the theft, the affair. That was really
Oh,
emotionally
mm.
hard. That was at the time, the worst of all of it. And yeah, that's
Was well, so let's dig in for a second before we get to your getting hit by a truck, literally.
literally.
Let's literally. Were you a spiritual? Were you grown up in a religious background, spiritual background?
So I grew up as Jewish, and in there was spirituality. But when I graduated from high school and I went off to university, and I always felt like there was something more. From the time I was young, I always felt like there was something more out there, and I could feel feelings. I was super empathic. And then I took off on a journey once I graduated from college, and I found myself living in an ashram. I found myself traveling in Central America, spending time with indigenous elders. The father of my children and I, we lived off the grid and were adopted basically by indigenous people to native by a Hopi family. Um, so I had been on this kind of seeking spiritual path to find that something more. And I do want to share, what really ignited that in me is I was at NYU, and I took a philosophy class, and the professor was teaching about we had to read a book on Sufism.
Hmm.
And when I read the Sufi story, there was something that really ignited a remembrance in me and a like, there was something there, right? And then one thing led to the next. I spent time with Thich Nhat Hanh, and that was another major turning point for me. And living in Amma's ashram, Mata Amritanandamayi in Northern California. I mean, so there was a lot of things. There was a lot going on spiritually for me. And then I had kids, and I then was living my life, yeah.
So let me ask you this though, because this is something that I get asked about a lot, is when, I mean, it sounds like you were searching. So you were a searcher without question. And for lack of a better term, you were doing things right. You were trying to educate yourself. You're trying to experience new things. You were trying to open yourself up to the universe, open yourself up to new ideas. So you're a pretty open-minded person. And then yet, as they always say, why does bad things happen to good people? All of these elements started to happen. And like you said, any one of those things would have brought anybody to their knees. Mm-hmm. But you just kept getting hit again and again and again and again. So from your experience, before we get to the near-death experience, but from your experience just studying spirituality, what do you think the cause, what was the universe trying to tell you with this hammering? And just, I mean, these are not paper cuts. These are full-blown losing of limbs with a broadsword kind of hits on you. Why do you what was the purpose of that from your point of view?
Number one, it was a total identity reboot, right? Okay. Identity reboot as a homeowner, as a partner, as a mom. Oh, I had become an empty nester too that time. So I was an empty nester. So in all ways, right? I was teaching at a Montessori school as a teacher, my role in the world, like in all ways, I was catapulted into this loss of identity on the outside. And the second thing I want to say is I kept saying it could be worse. And so I'm putting out, it could be worse. And the universe is like, oh, really? Bam, here you go. So I stopped saying it could be worse, because you can have, yes, and thank you, I've had enough. Thank you, I've had enough. And I also, there was something I wasn't paying attention to. I feel like there are things that we know that we don't pay attention to. And when we don't pay attention and come from an aligned place, we open ourselves up for circumstances and things to happen in our life. And I see now how all of that was for me.
Of course.
And how I got through it. And I think that's important to share, right? Like, how do we get through the hard things when they happen? Even when you are rooted into a spiritual way of being or spiritual beliefs, like things happen and we're human and we're wired to have certain reactions and responses. So I can share what got me through it. If that's.
Because I mean, like I said, all of those things are pretty heavy experiences to have in a life. Any one of them, and we haven't even gotten to being hit by a truck yet. So there's that. So how did you? Because I know a lot of people listening are listening and they've gone through stuff. They're going through stuff. They're going to go through stuff. What was your technique to kind of get through all of that, emotionally, spiritually, mentally?
Well, there were times that I literally couldn't get out of bed because it just kept on happening. I was like, It just kept on happening and kept on happening. And I knew like there was something underneath that in this major cracking open, there's this, when you're crying out for some help, for some guidance, to be shown the way, something, I kept on returning to gratitude, knowing, and service, knowing that if I could use my experiences to help others, people move through whatever arose, if I could use it in any way in service, it took the edge off. That's number one. And the other thing was gratitude. Like even on those days that I could barely move, gratitude that I heard the bird outside my window, gratitude someone smiled at me, you know, the smallest little things. And this was in 2000 and like mid 2000, almost 2013, like mid 2000. Yeah, in the fall of 2012 when it all started to happen. Yeah. And I know now, you know, I mean, and we'll get to my near death experience, that all is truly well and all is happening, whether you believe that things happen to you or for you. We can always say, how is this for me? What can I do with this to be of service? How is this for me? How is this for me? What can I use this for? And that kind of brings us back to some semblance of something greater than ourselves.
Exactly. And it's easy to look back upon things that happened to you and go, oh, that makes sense. Thank God that happened to me. You know, thank God I'm not with that person anymore. Thank God, you know, I needed to move anyway. Like, but when you're in, you know, the crap, as they say, it's very difficult to look at the bright side of what is happening for you. So it's a lot easier to do it in postmortem, if you will, than it is while it's happening. So I think that idea, what you use is gratitude. Gratitude does start to cleanse a lot of that stuff really quickly.
Yeah, getting out in nature. I started to exercise and moving my body, moving it through physically, because it's the energetic, physical, emotional, mental. And I went through a lot of different modalities of therapies and neurofeedback. But yeah, when it was really bad at the depths of it, you know, when you're crying out on the floor is again, when that greatest cracking open to something in trust, you know, that this too shall pass.
Yes.
And support, finding support. Yeah.
So now that we've gone through that part of your life, then all of a sudden the universe is like, well, she's not getting it. We've sent her a few hard knocks, but we're going to have to send her the ultimate knock on the door, which is to kill you. So tell us what happened on the day that led to your near-death experience.
Yeah. So those knocks on the door, I call them dope slaps from the universe. I'm actually working on that book right now, and that's a whole section, dope slaps from the universe. So as I mentioned, I had been educational consultant and teaching in a Montessori school. And I was leaving work one day. I got to a corner. My car was parked off campus. And there was a light that I had to cross. So I waited it was December 2nd, 2015. It was dusk. It was a little misty out. It was unusually warm for that day. And I got to the corner, and prior to crossing the street, I had been engaging with someone that I knew I shouldn't be engaging with. So I put my phone away. It's like, you know, kind of in my head about all of that. And I looked, I had the right of way to cross. So I looked both ways. The car stopped, giving me the right of way. It's a busy intersection. And I proceeded to cross the street. And up from behind me came, can I say the make and model of the car? I don't want to.
Oh,
it was
a big car.
Anyway, Dodge Ram pickup truck.
Sure.
Came up from behind me, and it turns out she was speeding because she was wanting to make a left-hand turn before the oncoming car, right? She could go straight. So she made a left and hit me about 3/4 of the way across the crosswalk and propelled my body 3.5 car lengths from the crosswalk, about 30 feet in the air, apparently. And that's what started this journey.
So when you that's the day. So when you got hit, I have to ask, did you feel anything?
No, what it felt like a thud on the right hand side of my body. And, you know, it's a big truck. So it hit a good portion of the right-hand side of my body. And I had a bag and I had a laptop in the bag. I don't know if that steel, whatever
Helped or
it's,
hurt? Yeah.
right. It blocked some of it, but it felt like a dull, uh, I don't want to say smack because it's more like a thud on the right hand side of my body. And I whipped my head around, but it felt like I was whipping it. It like time stopped. It felt very slow motion. And I had the thought, something's not right, something's wrong. And it turns out that was what was stuck in my neck for a while. Like all of my practitioners couldn't get to it until I replayed it. And that's what was stuck there, was something's wrong. And once I realized that, that's a whole nother conversation about healing, and the body really does keep the score. So that's what it felt like. It felt like a thud.
So when you were being thrown in the air, at what point did you leave your body?
So what happened was, I caught for a split second a pair of eyes across the truck, across the hood of the truck. And the next thing, I was above my body, looking down at it. I was looking down at the scene. I could see there was an expanse. I could see in 360 degrees, yet it was like there was a spotlight below. And I was observing the scene. I saw my body lying on the right hand side with my head to the left. I could feel the emotions of the people on the ground from above. Again, this is all from above. So I'm watching this, and there was some disorientation and getting my bearings. And there was a man, and that jumped out of the car, and he directed a woman to go. I saw the whole thing play out, directed someone to go stop the traffic. The woman who hit me said she had called 911, and I could feel the sheer terror as my body was laying still. And I was completely conscious, yet not in my body conscious. And an assessing was taking place. And part of the assessment was, am I going to be able to go back to that body? And after all that I had just gone through, my kids were a big draw for me, right? Like it wasn't. So the question was for me, am I going to be able to go back there? And there was a lot going on. There was a lot of internal organ damage, a lot of fractures. I had a cracked skull. I mean, there was a lot happening, but from above, the body looked in one piece, and I understood that I would be able to go back. And once that kind of was that assessing started to take place, there was a sensation of lifting higher and higher and higher, and the scene below faded.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go?
Well, as the scene below started to fade, I was in a complete blackness. It was the blackest of black. It's like we don't have a name for this. It's not even a color. We don't have a name for this. And it was an illuminated blackness. There was like a luminosity to the blackness.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, and on the way there, it felt like at some point, there was, as this energy and vitality of the body was diminishing, that part of me that was existing was being energized and having more life to it, as the body was shutting down. And in this blackness, it was merging with pure presence. There was no time. There was no space. It was all space. It was simply being merged in with this expanse. And there was no questions. There was no wondering. There was no ego. There was no me. There was no separateness. It was being merged in completely with this blackness. And I was existing as that. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing that happened. Would you like me to continue?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, we're here for that. Yes, please continue.
And there was also this sense of there's no time. Like I said, it's completely timeless. It's completely expansive. It's completely all things and no thing at the same time. There's no gender. There's no right, wrong. It's simply existing in pure presence. And it was also, there was a quality to it that was very peaceful, very peaceful, very, I want to say loving, but that gives it, makes it something. It's like it contained everything. It contained all of
it is everything and nothing at the same time.
Right? It is exactly. And then there was like a shift in a dimension almost. It's like a shift from that emerged this sense of floating, and I was floating and it felt like I was in a cocoon and there were others in cocoons, and I say others, yet they were also made up. We were the same, yet I was me. I'm aiming to give this words. And I was in a cocoon and there were others floating in the cocoon. And there was a simple of like, there was no fear. There was simply being, and it felt super nourishing and nurturing and warm. It's like being held in water, right? It's like being in a flotation tank almost. You're just held in this nurturing, warm, loving space. And in that place, we call it thought. I'm going to call it an energy packet, because it felt like an energy packet started to emerge. And there was a wondering, and the wondering was a waiting started to come with that energy packet. And it was like, what am I waiting for? Right. And as soon as the what am I waiting for culminated, that thought, that energy packet kind of like culminated, it popped into a being met with exactly what I was being waited for. And I found myself in a completely bright, effulgent light. And the light was growing and growing, and there was a presence in the light that was other than my own, yet that was also made up of this light that was communing with me and there for me. And that it was just clearly understood. There wasn't a thought process as we know thought to be. It was clearly understood. And this presence was there to communicate with me and share with me and show me things and for me. And in an instant, it was that presence. It's, I say it was like you put your forehead. If we put foreheads together, Alex, and I knew everything about you and everything about your life, and all the multifaceted, multidimensional aspects of your soul's journey and the events that have occurred in your life. It was like that. And all of this information was transmitted at, we say rapid speed. And again, it's not time. There's no sense of time like we know time to be. And all of this information was completely downloaded, uploaded. I understood everything that my soul's journey had taken. I understood everything that was going on earth in my life, in this lifetime at the time. And there was a lot that was transmitted about my particular life and about being embodied as human. And at some point that started to, there was an energy that started to kind of amplify, and there was an anticipation, and there was a need, like I needed to get back. There was an urgency that started to build that if I was going back, I needed to get back into the body. And right before I came back, I heard from this present that was other than my own, yet that I was also merged in with, when you go back, it's time to live big. So that was a hearing. And right before I descended, as I'll say, right before I descended, I asked this presence, who are you? And I heard, I am you. So in the I am you, I started to descend, and I was watching at some point. It's like I was there was like a descending, and I was watching below, and I could also hear below. There were the EMTs were like calling to me and speaking, and I could see it and also hear it. And I was watching my mouth move, but from above. It was such a trippy experience because there was this physical form, but I wasn't really in it. I was here, yet it was all happening at the same time. And as I started to come closer and closer into the body, at some point, I felt like I was being squeezed. It's like being a genie being squeezed into a bottle. And I was existing as this expanse outside of my body, yet also feeling the being squeezed into the body at the same time. And I could hear the body yelping. And there's at that point, it was a very like, oh, that's yelping sounds coming from me. And in the ambulance, I could see what was happening. My head, like they were trying to keep me there. And there was someone at my head, and I kept being out. So I could, again, it was, now I know it as bilocation, where you could be in both places. And when I came more into consciousness, I was being taken into it was a level 3 trauma unit, and there was organized chaos. And it was a lot of things have occurred. For a while, it was really hard for me to know where my body, where the boundaries of my body was, and where space was, and how I experience the world now.
So what's fascinating to me is that all those experiences that led up to this experience, it seems like the universe were you, from your, now we could talk about from your experience on the other side, you weren't told specifically what was wrong, or you weren't told specifically how to fix it, other than live big. So, tell me, please.
No, actually, I was shown a lot.
Okay, so tell us.
Question, or then, yeah, no, I heard it's time to live big, and I understood based on what was shared with me what that meant about ego, about fear, about what it is. We know what keeps us small, but understanding from a larger perspective what the soul carries through from lifetime to lifetime, and imprints of that. And also, all is truly well. I heard all is truly well, and I was shown these pillars of all is truly well, which are forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, service, surrender, trust, love. So I was shown these pillars of practicing this while we're here in these bodies, to be able to access and open up to these higher states of awareness of who we truly are as love, as expressions of love. So I don't know if that's gonna
yeah. So was there anything else? You didn't have a life review or anything like that on the other side?
I want to say that what I would equate to a life review is an understanding of what was happening on Earth, and what was occurring on Earth was related to what was happening in the state of existence. So, like, for example, when I came back, the depths of forgiveness and understanding and compassion, and my understanding of boundaries. So I would say my life review, was what I would equate to a life review for me. It wasn't like, oh, I could see how, all of the actions have ripple effects
Mm-hmm.
out into the collective, and you're able to experience things. Like I was able to experience the woman who hit me. I was able to experience what she was experiencing
Okay.
at that moment in time of this occurrence that I was a part of, but it wasn't a life. I guess yeah.
You
That's
weren't
what
in a room with a bunch of screens at 360 and
correct.
you weren't feeling everybody, but there was
Correct.
aspects of that you kind of
Correct.
felt. Okay, so
Exactly.
on the other side, they were kind of guiding you on giving you a
Yes.
reason why you were here, why this has happened to you, and what
Yes.
all these other things that they were trying to do up into this near death experience to kind of reset you in a sense. So you had a really it's really fascinating with me because you again were really open to the spiritual path, but yet you were on the wrong path in other aspects of your life, which is what they're saying, think big. So you were still thinking small, and there were other ego things or other things like that you had to deal with to get you on the right path that you needed to be on. Is that a fair statement, or how do you
I, I think what a fair statement to say is, so for me, the living big was, again, that intuition, right? I
mm-hmm.
knew what I knew, and I wasn't listening to the inner knowing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was making excuses. I was letting the voice of the ego say no, da,
Sure.
da, da, da. And the live big was aligning that inner voice and that inner life with the outer life to be in total alignment and an embodied expression of our truth, which is connected with the divine and with love. And for me, also, it was, I wanted to either do more with the Montessori world and education, or I really wanted to use all the experiences that I just had, again, in service to others. And I was really being called to do that. And I wasn't doing either of those things. Right.
Gotcha.
So it's the live big. Like when you go back, it's time to live big and be on your dharmic path. And yeah,
You were being held. You were holding yourself back.
I was holding myself back. And I was also, I was also able to see how I had co-created everything that had happened up until that point, not in a shaming, blaming kind
Mm-hmm.
of way, but in a way that opens up spaciousness. And I also, Alex, this is really important, is I understood so much more when I came back about boundaries. Because yes, we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. And we are also human beings having a human experience. And when we go around and when we treat everyone as the essence of who they truly are and as their potential to be that essence, a lot of times we suffer, or we go through a lot of hardship in the face of that. So it's possible to acknowledge the essence of who someone truly is and pay attention to who they're being. You can have compassion for people from afar. You can, if it's not safe for you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, and genetically, boundaries are okay. Boundaries don't make us less spiritual, which is,
Absolutely. I agree with you
well,
110%.
I mean, I was a person that wasn't having a lot of boundaries. So I learned to be in the both end.
Well, it seems like your learning curve got sped up quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
So you come
And
back. Go ahead.
yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
saying?
And the depths and the layer of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is huge. Um, Forgiveness is huge. Forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. Forgiveness is huge because forgiveness also has to do with regret. And we don't want to get to the end of our lives or get to a place where, we're just, it's like that denser energy when you're holding on to stuff. It just keeps us held back, and it keeps someone else held back too. But, the
Mm-hmm.
whole.
So let me ask you then, when you came back and you are healing and going through this, did you keep this information to yourself, or did you come out of the near-death experience closet right away and started shouting it from the mountaintops?
Yeah, no, I was in rehab one day, and because I was in rehab, I had visiting nurses. I
Sure.
had to walk again and talk again and do all these. It was pretty long road to recovery, yet I had just had this blissful experience. And I want to say I remember being in rehab and I saw something. It was in the days of Earthlink, and something popped up on the side, and it was Anita Marjani sharing her experience with Dr. Oz. And I didn't know, again, it was like, at this point it's 2016, and she spoke. I was like, she's giving words to my experience, to what just happened. Just have to plug in my computer. She's giving words to my experience, like in what happened. And that was wild. And it took a little while for me to give language to what happened. And I have a very loving, supportive family. So I was sharing bits and pieces, yet integration. I mean, I feel like integration, I'm still integrating, and integration took a while because I would walk around and I didn't know the boundaries between my body and the outside world. And I could hear things. And I have a lot of activated extrasensory awarenesses that resulted from this experience. So making sense of all of that. So I started to give language to it in bits and pieces. And for a while, I didn't watch anyone else's or listen to anyone else's near-death experience, because it was really important to me to understand my own experience without being influenced.
So when you finally decided to go out publicly with this, how did your friends, family, colleagues kind of react to this? Because this, like I always say, this is a clearing of the room kind of conversation for many people.
Yeah, the first time I went out and shared, it was right at the beginning of COVID. And it felt like the call to service, again, like in any way that this information helps, supports, activates the remembering of who we truly are, of our eternal nature. That was more important than what people were going to look at. It was like the live big. It's like I couldn't not share at that point. And especially when the world was coming face to face with mortality in a whole new way. And my family's always been really supportive. May not understand all the time, right? Like, but it's like Felice doing her Felice thing, yet is super supportive. And actually, my dad passed a year and a half ago, and it was really helpful for my mom. In her grieving process, I think for all of us. And things shift and change, and friendships and relationships shift and change. And it's again, if we can be aligned with who we are on the inside is who we are on the outside, so that our inner world, our inner facing self, and our outer facing self is in total alignment, then we're in integrity with ourselves. And I had to come back and live big.
Fair enough. So you mentioned a little bit about the after effects. Can you talk a little bit about the after effects of your near-death experience?
When I came back, I was really open. I was receiving a lot of guidance and a lot of information and a lot of on the other side, there's senses that we don't have name for, and there's a way the senses all work together. So number one, I was hearing guidance, and I was working with a woman from Colombia, a medicine woman from Colombia. And she said, ask who this is. And when I asked, I heard the word Akasha. This was in 2016. It was before like the Akashic records became like a, more kind of out in the public eye and known. And there were so many cool correlations to that. Like in the book, every major religion that stems from a spiritual path has a book, right? And it's like, oh, those are the records, right? And I was shown. So when I heard Akasha and I looked it up, I mean, maybe I had heard of it like a time. It wasn't in my common knowledge or vernacular. And I looked it up and I was like, yes, everything resonated. And then there was a frequency of light and presence of this pure crystalline energy that runs in our cells that we can activate, and this presence that started to come to and through. So that's one thing. The other thing is my clairaudience is super hyper activated. I can hear flowers, like I could hear a rose.
Mm-hmm.
I could hear things that are inaudible to the human ear.
Mm-hmm. How did you deal with
And
that when you started getting that information?
I mean, I didn't go out of my house for a while. I was like, okay, so I mean, I had a walker, I had a cane, you know, I had visiting nurses in and out of my house for many months, so I didn't have to go out. But I took a bunch of, at some point, I started to take some classes and certifications to help me hone all of these new extrasensory awarenesses, because it's so big. And when you're existing as the vastness, to have a way, it's like a funnel, to have a way to be a conduit through so that it could be directed
Mm-hmm.
was really helpful. There's also this sense, the claircognizance, which is clair knowing. And there's also this way of precognition almost. It's like
Mm-hmm.
all these senses working together in invisible ways. And I'm still learning how to use it and how to share and how to help others activate it, because you don't need to have a near-death experience to have access to all of this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's part of this great awakening and this remembering. It is encoded in us, in our DNA, and at a cellular level. I just happen to have a near-death experience. So, to be able to guide people to activate it for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has been something I've become really passionate about, and being of service as a conduit.
Have you did you get a feeling on the other side or since the other side about what is happening to us as a species right now, as a consciousness? Because like you said, 2015 Akashic wasn't really known, though it's been talked about for thousands of years from
Yep.
the Vedic texts. But for whatever reason, these ideas, this show, more near-death experiences, they all seem to be bubbling up now to the surface. And you know, it's like near-death experiences now, like don't go towards the light. That's part of our
Right.
zeitgeist, and chant.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and channeling is becoming a thing as far as people understanding that concept of channeling, flow state. These are all things that are starting to bubble up that weren't around a decade ago, really, in the zeitgeist as they are today. Do you have any understanding of why this is happening now to all of us?
Yes. So number one, what I want to say is this was written. I can remember number one. So this is I'm going to answer in a few ways.
Sure.
Number one, when I had come back and I was receiving this information, I it's like there were frequencies in the field that were knew that this major rebirth was coming. And it's not like they were looking for teachers, but they were there. These energies were there to, when there was an opening, if there was an opening in someone's energy, to be able to meet that, to encourage, to support, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, I think COVID really cracked open again that awareness of waking up from spiritual amnesia.
Mm.
Um, and what I'm shown is that the more people are resonating at and even curious, right? Because curiosity breeds spaciousness. The more people are resonating at higher frequencies and opening up with curiosity, even opening up the space, the collective is growing, and these higher frequencies are more accessible for people to experience and be a match for. Because with channeling, what I'm told and what I'm shown is that you will be a conduit and a channel for whatever you are a vibrational match for. That's what they show me, right? So Um,
Well, let me
and
stop
that's
you
why
there for let me stop you there for a second. You say they showed me. So let's talk a little bit about that because yeah, I understand what you mean, but everybody
yeah.
listening is like, what is she talking about? So what do you mean they show you? Are you have you become a channel because of your near death experience? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's frequency and vibration, right? And it all ties in because when we can practice these gratitude, forgiveness, those pillars of all is well, and get in an aligned state with to be a conduit of, it's energy. We're all energy and vibration. We know that, and different emotional states and different impact our energetic resonance. And it's like when someone walks in a room and they have a heavy vibe or a light vibe. Everyone knows
Mm-hmm.
that. When I say they show me, when I came back, what occurred for me was this. It's like there's a part of me that was ejected from me. And when I came back in, more of who I truly am came back through me. And we all have the ability to get out of our minds when we shut off our analytical thinking minds, and when we shut off our brains, and we shut off our, we have the ego take a back seat, and we enter into the bigger than our body aspect of ourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to open up to dimensions and frequencies. That's our multidimensional nature, right? That exists, that we're not practiced at being in communion with. So when we open up to that, we can then be a conduit. For me, it was these light beings, this frequency. It's a frequency of light that comes to and through me, and they show me how to activate it. They show me how to share it, and everyone can have access to this. And through meditation, right? Quieting the mind, meditation, breath work, being out in nature, shutting off our cell phones, turning down our social media, finding ways to return to the self. Just sit quiet, right? Moving our bodies, entering into these flow states so that we can access this information. Everyone has access to it. I hope that answers the question. I know it's like
It does. Yeah, it does. It does. So you have now been able, your channel, if you will, your conduit, the pipeline
yeah,
has opened for
the
you. So
pipeline.
that
Yes,
is the information. So you can tap into information that you weren't able to tap into prior to the near death experience.
correct. And I heard the word when I asked who this was. It was Akasha and Akashiraya. And Akashiraya is at this high frequency. And this is going to go a little out there. It's at this frequency that, people are so used to the seven chakras. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it goes to this higher and higher and higher chakras,
Mm-hmm.
like the etheric chakras, and it opens up into this whole realm of source energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what comes through for me. It's not really for me. That's just what comes through to be shared. And again, we all have this encoded in our cells. It's like, for me, it took a near death experience to embody as more of who I truly am, right? Which is the essence of light, which is love. And this is encoded in our cell, that Christed light, not, Jesus the man, but that Christed pure crystalline light, So yeah, and we can activate it also through looking at the sun, through having the sun rays, through looking at the water, allowing the sparkles on the water.
Almost like
And
a meditative state, if you
yeah,
will. Yeah.
yeah,
What was the biggest takeaway you had from your near death experience?
that we are all here to be embodied expressions of love, source, the divine, whatever name you call the God of the infinite intelligence of your understanding. We are here to be embodied expressions of that, to mirror that in one another. And the dharmic path, we each have unique ways of doing that. And we are the divine knowing itself. We are love knowing itself. And the individual part of that comes from our souls, also have these kind of journeys to come to life, to learn, to grow. I mean, how remarkable that we are in human bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, we are in human bodies. That's pretty cool. And when you can look at another person in the eyes and see that divinity in them, looking back at you, we're all made of the same stuff. Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Living with alignment with the voice of the soul, which is love, joy, relationship, expression, service.
If you had a chance to go back in time and talk to little Felice, what advice would you give her?
Don't worry so much about what other people think.
How do you define God or source?
Love is the first word that pops into mind. And I want to say, how do I define God, source? Who we are all, what we are all, who we be. I am love.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
To be embodied expressions of love, of the divine, of source, knowing itself.
And where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing in the world?
So my website is groundedillumination.com. And my Instagram is Felice, that little underscore. Is that what it's called? It's underscore DiMartino. And I'm also on Facebook. So yeah.
And do you have any parting messages for the audience?
To know that in the plane of existence, in the ultimate capital R reality, all is truly well. Even when it seems that, in our human world and all isn't truly well, in the ultimate capital R reality, all is truly well. And you are right on time. Wherever you are in your life, whatever you're doing, whoever you're being, all this stuff, you are right on time, right here, right now.
Felice, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your experience and wisdom with all of us. I truly appreciate you, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.